All right, so chapter 4 is about Hebrew nouns. And what I want to do in this video is just go over the endings of the different noun forms and then look at just a few examples of how the vowel pointings change when you add these endings. Sometimes you might look at them and think it's all random, but it's actually very consistent and follows basically the rules of syllables. So if you've learned the rules of syllables from the last couple chapters, you'll see how it all works together and how the vowel pointings, when they change, are actually following those rules. But let's go over the endings first. So for a masculine singular noun, there is no ending. And so we'll just put a line there. There's no ending for that. It is what it is. And it's usually this form that will be the lexical form. So if you were to look in your lexicon, you wanted to look up the word Adam, you want to find out what it meant, you would look up the masculine singular form. The plural ending is going to be a hirik yod meme. Hirik yod meme. And I'm going to put a little green box here. This green box will just represent the last letter of any given word. So for a masculine plural, we'll end with a hirik yod meme. And then the dual form, here's my box again, so that's going to represent the last letter of a word. The dual form is going to have a patach under that last letter, followed by a yod with a hirik under that, and then a final meme. And this last letter is going to be accented. So usually, if there's no accent mark, the accented syllable is always the last syllable. With dual forms, it's going to be the last letter of that word. So you see here, we'll have a post-tonic syllable in a dual form. And so that's basically the different endings you'll have. So for a masculine singular, you have nothing. For a masculine plural, an im ending, hirik yod meme. And then for a dual, you have a patach under that last letter with a yod hirik meme. And then it's going to be accented on that last letter of the word. For the feminine, by far, the most common one you're going to see is a comet's hay. And a comet's hay. That's going to be the most common that you're going to see. I'll put a little green box here, so that's the last letter. There are other forms that Van Pelt and Pratico kind of give. If you remember, though, instead of listing all of them out, if you remember that the letters hey and tau usually represent feminine endings, then anytime you see a word ending in one of these letters, you'll pretty much know that, okay, this has got to be a feminine word. So instead of memorizing, oh, it could be a sigol tau or a patach tau or a hirik yod tau and all that, just remember comet's hey, because that's going to be the most popular. But a hey or a tau, you're probably looking at a feminine word. The plural for feminine is oath. So you have a holam wow plus a tau. Oath. Again, we're ending with that tau. But here, this oath ending is going to make it plural. And then the dual is going to be exactly the same as the masculine. So we have our accented last letter with a patach, yod, hirik, and then final meme. So that's what it's going to look like. These are going to be the various endings that you'll see on different noun forms. So what does this look like? Let's just take a simple word like Seuss, right? Seuss means horse, right? In the masculine singular. So here is Seuss. That's horse. Now what happens if we want to make it feminine? Well, we would add our comet's hey onto the end, and we get Susa. That would be mare, Susa. We could say add our masculine plural ending, and we could make it horses. And so we get Sus-im. And you can see this green box is right where that samik is, right? We had our hirik yod underneath. So this would be horses. If we wanted to say mares, we just add our oath ending on, Susoth, and we get mares. Or if we wanted to say two horses, right, we would do the same thing. We would just add our ending, our dual ending, onto our word sus there, right? And that would be our accent. So that would be horses. But a lot of times, when you look at these words, they change. The vowel pointings don't stay consistent like this shurik does in the word sus. So why is that? What's going on there? Well, really quickly, let me just run through a few rules of what's called Proto-Hebrew. And this will kind of help explain why everything changes. And you'll notice that it's actually very consistent. So let me give you 4 quick rules here for Proto-Hebrew. You can memorize these if you want. Otherwise, you can just look in the book and just kind of memorize how Van Pelt and Pratico kind of lay out how the changes are. But these rules go as follows. So the first one is that a comets, right? A comets in biblical Hebrew was a patach in, Proto-Hebrew. So that means if you had a word like davar, right? Davar means word, matter, or thing. In Proto-Hebrew, we would turn these comets into patachs, and we'd have davar. Second, vocal shawahs. Vocal shawahs, really of any kind, whether it be a simple shawah or a composite shawah, right? So you have your hatef patach, your hatef sigol, your hatef kametz hatuf, any of those. Your vocal shawahs in biblical Hebrew were a short vowel, usually, again, a patach in Proto-Hebrew, right? So you can spell patach either with a CH or with a H with a dot underneath it. The third one is historic long vowels were the same. So sus, it's an ugly looking shurik, but that's a shurik there. Sus in biblical Hebrew would be sus in Proto-Hebrew. And then finally, short vowels were the same as well. So I'm gonna write same over here for both 3 and 4. So what does that mean? It means this doesn't reduce, short vowels don't reduce. So these two right here, a comet becomes a patach and vocal shawahs become short vowels, usually patachs, are reducing in Proto-Hebrew. Okay, so those are kind of the basic rules for Proto-Hebrew. Well, what does that mean for our words and why the vowels are changing? Well, let's take our word davar, right? Davar. Here we have 2 comets, 2 cometses, right? If we want to make this masculine plural, what we want to do is we want to add our ending. So here's our eem. But you notice when we've done that, the entire syllabification, the entire tonic structure of this word has changed. So after we add our ending, we do what the Proto-Hebrew rules required. So our cometses become patachs, just like that. And now we basically run through the rule of syllables. So we divide our syllables, right? So I'll just kind of divide them like this. Right, those are kind of our dividing marks so you can see here. This would be our tonic syllable, which means that, tonic, this is where our accent is over here, which means that this bait with a patach is now in a pre-tonic. It's an open pre-tonic syllable. And if you remember, one of our rules for syllables was that an open pre-tonic syllable requires a long vowel, which means this is going to become a comets. And now here we have an open pre-tonic syllable. And our last syllable rule was that an originally open pro-pretonic syllable, right? This is our pro-pretonic syllable. An originally open pro-pretonic syllable reduces the original short vowel to a vocal shawah. And so that patach goes to a vocal shawah. And so to add our ending here to davar with its 2 cometses, we end up with davarim. And that's why we have that vocal shawah right there, is because we're working through the rules of syllable from the starting point of Proto-Hebrew. The reason none of it changed for sus, as I was kind of laying some of those out, is that sus, that shurik, that's a historic long vowel. And historic long vowels don't change. And so we could add whatever ending we wanted, and that is always going to stay the same. We could, add our oath ending, right? It's still going to stay there. We could add our eam ending. It's going to stay the same. So that doesn't change at all. That's why that remains. For the same thing with Torah, right? So we have Torah. Here we end with a comet's hey. One thing you need to know about feminine words that end in a comet's hey, you can never add the ending onto the hey, right? So that box that I had where you had, here's your last letter and then you had your ending oath, a hey will never be in that box. So what you do for a word like this is you drop the hey and the comets, and then you add your ending to that form. So you get Toroth, which would be laws. But you can see that our holum here didn't change because this is a historic long vowel. Okay, so if you can remember davar and how davar became davarim, oops, let me write that a little better. You can remember how it became davarim. That's a resh there. Then when you come to segolit nouns, right? So segolit nouns usually have at least one segol in them, and they're usually accented on the first the first syllable, and are usually only 2 syllables long. So here melech means king. Nefesh, right, that's another one. Nefesh. Sometimes they might be patachs rather than sigols, but either way, they're accented on that first syllable. If you understand how this became devarim, this word, this noun, all segolit nouns are going to imitate this structure, even though they're different forms, right? Even though they have segolit or patachs under them, they're going to mimic that form. So all you have to do is replicate this vowel pointing for your segolit noun. So melech, king, in the plural becomes melachim, kings. Or nefesh, which is life or soul, breath, becomes nefashim. It's just imitating that pattern up there. Remember though, if you have a word like cherev, which means sword, cherev, accented right there. When this becomes plural, it's going to follow the same davar pattern here in the feminine, right? But this is a guttural. A chet is a guttural, and it cannot take a simple vocal schwa. It has to take a composite schwa. And so in this case, you're not going to have just a schwa, but you're going to have a hatef patach. And so you get haravoth, right? So when you add your ending, here's our syllable, our accented syllable right here. Here's our open pretonic, or originally open propretonic or pretonic syllable. That's going to become a long vowel. And then you have your originally open propretonic syllable reduces to a vocal schwa. But because it's a guttural, it has to take a composite schwa. Okay, now the last one are geminate nouns. Geminate nouns. These nouns will usually have 2 consonants in them, so you can think of like right? But originally they had 3, and so it might have looked like this. It had 3 consonants in them. And what happens when we add our plural ending into it is that you can you can kind of think of it like this, that our two consonants, the last one the one that's doubled, has this floating dogish forte over the top of it. And when you add anything onto it, that dogish forte is going to drop in. So here we're adding our plural endings on. So to make plural, we're going to add our ending, im. That dogish forte is going to drop. Notice that our final meme here has become just a medial meme there. And our dogish forte has dropped. Now, what do we do right here? Well, this dogish forte is going to close this syllable. So remember when we were dividing syllables, this dogish forte closes that one. We can go like that to indicate it's closing this one and opening that one. And so because of that, we now have a closed, unaccented syllable, which requires a short vowel. And so it's going to stay up atop. And so the plural of is going to be amim. Amim. Right? Because it's a closed, unaccented. Same thing if you have a geminate noun that has a long vowel in it, so chok, which is statute, when you pluralize this, get our dogish forte in there still, but it doesn't stay, it's not going to stay this holum, it's going to reduce to its kind of corresponding vowel class short vowel, which in this case is a kibbutz. And so you get chukim, chukim. So that's why the vowel pointings look a little different as you're going through these. It's not random. They're actually following the rules of syllables that we learned last time.